Thank you. Welcome to the Institute of Management Consultants, Northwest Oregon and Washington chapter. We've got a great program ahead. We've already been having a lot of laughs in the different breakout rooms that I've been visiting. Chuck has been very entertaining, as he always is, as has everyone in the different rooms that I've walked between. We have two great programs today. The innovation talk is being done on cybersecurity, and then we're going to be looking at winning clients with Tom Cox. Now, I want to make sure that I recognize Chuck Roxon. Chuck is going to be joining our leadership team, and we're looking at a lot of new projects, as is Thomas Cox is joining our leadership team. And Frank Coker and Justin Blaney, Dr. Justin Blaney, are making a big push with the University of Washington, and Suzanne Loeb is working with the Eastern Washington University. So thank you one and all for all of your efforts. Now, we're going to first begin with Andy and Matt. Andy Gonzales is part owner and in charge of business development at Team Logic IT in San Antonio, Texas. Team Logic IT is an IT services franchise that benefits franchise owners and clients alike by leveraging the point-to-point network model to tap into each franchise's pool of knowledge and experience for the betterment of the network as a whole. This is the basis of the cybersecurity talk we're going to be having. Now, Matt Vient is regional sales manager at Breach Secure Now, a cybersecurity and compliance-based platform that exists to navigate and understand the cybersecurity realm and its many moving parts. Together, Andy and Matt are looking to educate and empower businesses against cybersecurity threats in their many, many forms. And we all know of at least one or several horror stories. I myself had my Facebook page copied twice. At first, I thought someone had hacked it. No, they just copied my photograph, put up an identical page, started sending announcements to my friends, colleagues, family, and I started getting phone calls from people as I was rolling down the interstate one day. But within an hour and a half, and that site was down. So with that, take it away.
All right, John, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for your time. I appreciate you all giving me the platform to educate you all on the treacherous topic, as you all just heard, of cybersecurity. Thomas Cox invited me to this topic, or to present this topic, and I consider him a mentor. So this is quite the honor. Thank you very much, Thomas. My name is Andy Gonzales. I am part of the Team Logic IT network. You heard a bit about what we do. This, in a nutshell, the IT services role is never dull. So it involves technology. So that's the first interesting thing. But it always requires constant attention to ensure that it continues working with every unique environment that this technology is a part of. So the dark side, if you will, of technology is the risk aspect of it. So in terms of technology, there is that dark side, which is the attack vectors that you create with every piece of technology that you integrate into your company, right? So not just the environment itself and all the technology that you introduce to it, but every user that interfaces with any of those technologies. And then most importantly, the roles of each user that interface with all of that technology, right? So what this means is that you can't take one company that's had a cybersecurity risk performed and then base your cybersecurity protocols based on that assessment and its results. It'd be like taking credit for someone else's blood work results and then trying to live your life based on the doctor's prescriptions of good health based on that blood work, right? So how do we at San Antonio Team Logic IT ensure that we're staying abreast of the cybersecurity landscape, and then ensure that our clients' environments, in whatever form they take, are not falling behind in terms of cybersecurity best practices. So honestly, cybersecurity is not a one team or several team job. It's an entire industry, as you all might have guessed. And this entire industry that sprung up out of necessity because of the arrival of the internet, and then more and more convenient computing is creating ever evolving methods of theft and even indirect violence, as you all heard with that Facebook phishing that John experienced. The common security tactics that we use today, or that we've understood, like cameras and locks, are just not going to cut it. So what we try to do is we try to create a common baseline of understanding through education for every person who interfaces with the internet, which is everyone at this point. So if we're going to stay ahead of the cybersecurity threats and the crimes as we know them today, it's important to understand them as they are today and as they are going to continue evolving. So because there's no basic or there's no perfect cybersecurity solution, it's important to understand that it's a multi-layered matrix. That is what cybersecurity is. It's a multi-layered matrix, and you want to understand every component of it that you can. So today, with the little time we have, we'll do the human and internal policies component as it relates to businesses and corporations. So today I have the pleasure of presenting with Matt Vient at Breach Secure Now, who will be presenting on the human and internal policies component. We do work together, and we do work with this team to provide this component of cybersecurity services to our clients. So Matt, thank you again for your time today. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the education you've brought with you. So please pull up your slide and proceed.
Sure. Thank you there, Andy. Let me go ahead and, so I don't have a full slide deck presentation, but I just have a slide that everyone can just kind of take a peek at. Like Andy mentioned, cybersecurity in general, there's many layers to it, and we could talk a lot longer than 10 minutes on it, but we decided today to focus on something that's one of the most prevalent scams, cybersecurity, things that people are aware of, which is ransomware, and John, with that story that John mentioned, it's a perfect example, because ultimately what we focus on, when Andy was talking about the different layers of a cybersecurity stack, we really focus on the human aspect. We look at the fact that about 92% of the data breaches that occur in all the different industries, they require some sort of human interaction to succeed. And that's a really, really important piece to note. So that's why what we really focus on is, well, what are the causes of this? What are these scams that are going around, and who's being targeted, right? And that's why we love, we don't love to hear the stories, but the stories like John's, it helps bring a realness to these threats. And it helps people understand that, hey, this is happening to everybody, all different organizations, different size organizations. So for those of you that have clients that, you're trying to help evaluate, protect their organization, we look at, well, one of the first things that has to be done is educating them. What are these threats and how are they happening, right? So we look at ransomware for an example. What is ransomware? I'm sure many of you, many of you may have had a situation like John, where you've been involved in some sort of scam, or you've at least heard, news reports, right? Maybe, a colleague you have, or, a different business down the road got hit with a ransomware attack, right? And we look at the cause of this. What is ransomware? It's simple terms. It's basically a malware that can be installed into any system, right? Any server, no matter who you are. And that's what's really, really important about what we try to get that education across. Is it doesn't matter if you're a Fortune 500 company, or a massive hospital. Everybody is prevalent to these threats, right? And we talk about the number one cause being phishing emails, right? And I'm sure you're all very familiar with this. Right? You get an email, you're not sure if it's legit, you click on it, you open up a link, and all of a sudden, boom, right? Your files are encrypted. And it's a very real and very scary situation. And that's specifically targeting end users, right? So it's so easy to fall into this trap. And in one of the breakout rooms, we were just starting to discuss some of these pain points that everybody's experiencing. And one of them is, let's look at the pandemic, right? All of a sudden, everybody's working remote. Everybody is in the same realm as far as new work environments, right? So it's a new threat landscape that has been unrolled, whether we like it or not. Right? There's less security measures in place. So what we really try to focus on is educating users on the fact that no longer can we only look at a technology perspective. We have to incorporate that human end user awareness, that training aspect, so that we can figure out, hey, number one, what can organizations do to prevent themselves from ever falling into this situation, right? Becoming a victim of ransomware, becoming in a situation where their Facebook gets hacked, right? And these can range from something that seems pretty small to something that could shut down your organization, right? In an overnight fashion. So that's something that we really try to focus on. And a few of the ways that we try to help people do that is, number one, it's as simple as security awareness training for your organizations, right? And this is not just for clients, but for yourselves, right? Cybersecurity, when we talk about these threats, it starts at the top, right? And that's one of the ways that we suggest when we're talking to organizations and to partners is we have to incorporate the engagement factor of this is happening in our everyday lives, not just when we're at the workplace, right? Especially since, as I mentioned before, the workplace is very much so in our living rooms, right? Where we have all these new distractions, babies crying in the background, the dogs barking, all these pain points kind of factoring together. And this is why we are at an all-time high of things like ransomware attacks and phishing scams going around. So in a nutshell, again, without spending 40 minutes on it, that's the biggest piece that we try to focus on is, we partner with organizations, like Andy and his team at Team Logic to be able to put together programs to help educate organizations on these threats, on this ever-changing landscape of why is this happening, who's being targeted, and how do we prevent it? And then there's also obviously the remediation of, well, if it happens, what do we do, right? And that unravels a whole another list of topics, but it's a very interesting and changing landscape right now. And when we work with getting feedback, that's what's most important too. Is a lot of you, I think, in our breakout session, I think somebody had brought up the fact that they were evaluating one of their clients' kind of stacks, and they were really shocked to see the lack of security measures in place. And that is a very, very common theme that we see all the time. Is when that's kind of step one, is evaluating. Not only your clients but yourself. What are we doing to protect our servers, our organization? Where are these vulnerabilities, and how can we patch those up? And very, very common theme is the missing link. Oftentimes is that human education factor. So there's, when we talk about remediation and kind of proactive approach, there's a lot of different ways that we suggest. No matter who you're doing it, working with, the number one at the list is certainly security awareness training. There's security awareness training just to for compliance factors. That's something that's heavily been increased over the last year or so. Cyber insurance. There's a lot of different realms that are now requiring cyber training in different fashions to be able to qualify for certain policies and whatnot. But there's security awareness trainings. There's dark web monitoring, which all ties in things like password hygiene. Simulated phishing campaigns is one of the most highly recommended practices to have your clients go through, right? So that the end users can experience what it's like in a real life situation when they're not sitting down to take a training, right? That's what's important. They're going through their everyday lives, and being able to track that and measure it. And it's a really, really beneficial way for you to look at your clients and show them this risk. You can actually measure the risk from a way that typically people are not, they're just simply not monitoring. And that's why cyber criminals, frankly, are so successful, because they have an endless amount of targets. And we are all human. We all make mistakes. But the biggest mistake that we are making is simply not preparing our clients, our own employees, our own end users on understanding these threats at the very least. That's the kind of step one. So I know we're getting towards the top of our time limit here. Like I said, it's a very big topic that we could unravel, but I figured as far as like peeling that first layer back, those are some of the really, really key pieces that we focus on. And it really does start with the education. So if anyone has any, questions on that, when you're evaluating your own stack, that's exactly what we're here for. We're happy to answer those questions, dive in a little more deep. And Andy and his team at Team Logic, they like I said, we partner with them, and they handle that very well, and they put together a lot of good situations there to help you guys understand where you're at, see some vulnerabilities, and kind of go from there. So
Thank you very much. Well done. If there are questions, we'll entertain a few questions now, and then we will do more Q&A after Tom's talk. Any questions right now? I'm sure, we all have issues. We all get email from people we don't know. And yes, when something comes through and I'm attracted to either the name of the person, I'm wondering, do I know this person? Is this a subject that's important to me? I'm forever getting more email. All of us are inundated with email, and having a system to unsubscribe, to delete. If we don't know it, delete it. It'd be like somebody's knocking at your door.
Sometimes, John, unsubscribing gives them the information that they want.
Yep.
Sometimes you
nodding vigorously.
unsubscribe. So, that's kind of a backwards method too.
Mark is right. It comes down to your protocols. Do you know what to do if you get an email that you're not sure about?
Exactly.
Do you have the right phone number of the person? Do you have the right name of the person?
You definitely don't
You
want
have a relationship
know
with the
that,
person. Because if it's an important message that warrants you reaching out to them, whether it's about moving money across bank accounts, either internally or across companies, you have to establish that relationship and then know where to reach them, where their number is not even being spoofed. So all of this, it's rough that we're talking about this in such a limited amount of time, but I still appreciate the opportunity to discuss this. But there's many moving parts to this, and just being aware that there's many attack vectors that really we call it social engineering. That's the level of sophistication that these hackers have. They're not just getting into your account. Maybe they don't even have to get into an account. They just have to know, who you are, and what that relationship might look like, and then attack you that way.
They'll get their answers elsewhere.
Yep. And the other one last thing to add to that is, if they somehow fail at going towards you, they simply go on to the next. And it's as simple as that. And they have their systems are much more robust and sophisticated than we realize, right? It's not like the movies in the 90s where they've this hood on and it's one person sitting in the dark room, right? It's actual corporations now, like billion-dollar corporations that are just sending this stuff out, and wherever it sticks, they will attack. And that's why the last thing I'll leave you guys with, one of the most important pieces is what Andy said at the beginning, is it's so important to not just have one piece of this in your program. It's all about having a layered approach so that you can check all those boxes off without having, piecemealing it to a degree. And that's what Andy started off with, and that's what they do a really good job at, kind of putting that package together there. So all great points. So
Chuck had his hand up.
I just wanted to reinforce what both the presenters have said. This issue is considered so important at the national level that the Department of Defense actually has a free for the public self-certification program on how to identify phishing and identify potential ransomware. I have a client where I had the CEO, all the top people, 100% of the employees now have to take this the day they're hired. And this is just it. What can I say? I said it. You guys said it beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
If we get that, if we don't have it in the chat before we close, everyone who's registered will get an email with the video link, and we'll include that link in the email. So if you may have some resources you want to share now in the chat, but particularly let me know so that we get it in the email going out after the program. And With that, let's move on to our next topic, and then we will come back to this to discuss it more thoroughly. Now, Thomas Cox, Thomas has been a member of the IMC for some time. I've known Thomas for, I don't know, 10, 12 years more. And this is our inside track talk that Thomas is going to give. And his topic is winning clients. IMC is serious about helping its members and guests to thrive. And thriving includes having repeatable, reliable marketing and sales processes. Thomas has just spent the past 4 months running a study group, studying one of the best books on this topic titled The Irresistible Consultant's Guide to Winning Clients, 6 Steps to Unlimited Clients and Financial Freedom. Today, Thomas shares with us what he's learned and the results he and his study group have achieved so far. Let's welcome Tom Cox.
Thank you, John, very much. Appreciate it. And I want to reinforce a couple of things at the very beginning of our talk here. One of which is I don't represent David Fields. He doesn't represent me either, frankly. And this is not like some authorized thing where I'm trading on his name. I bought his book, retail. I love it. I studied it. The other folks in the class, we all each bought a copy. And so this is like Bible study. You know, you don't need to have anyone get the Pope's permission to do Bible study. Thank goodness. And this is just, you know, one guy, what he learned. And actually, I see Diane Gibson's here on the call. She was in the group, so she might have something to chime in on. One last thing before I get into my slides, I'm going to be asking you some questions or some interactive portions to our talk. I just put a link into chat, and if you click through on it, you'll go here. It'll look like this, slido.com. There's a number there. There's even a QR code if you'd rather answer on your phone, but I'll be prompting you with some questions as I go, like in one short word or phrase, what would you most like to take away from this training? In fact, why don't we try that right now? And tell me, what would you most like to take away from a training about winning clients and getting unlimited clients and financial freedom? Would it be more leads? Is that your issue? Is it closing? Is it pricing? Is it sales in general? One new idea. And Jerry's answered in chat, but what I'm inviting you to do is go to slido.com. You'll either click the link, which will open a tab in a browser, or point your phone at that QR code on screen, and you can answer that way. Oh, people are answering. Let me start showing results here. Repeatable marketing, sales in general. If you like either of those answers, type the first letter of that answer, and it'll show up as a pop-down. Winning clients and scaling. Let's see. Who are my best clients? That's an interesting question. Know what I'm doing. Yeah, boy, I needed that. High quality leads. Yep. Range of approaches, growth. Yeah, scaling again. You know, keywords. It sounds like someone wants to do SEO. I'll come back to this question in a minute. I'm going to leave this open, so if you want to keep answering, you can. This is the cover of the book there on the right-hand side. Guide to Winning Clients. And in a bit, I'll paste the URL for Amazon for the book if you want to go get your own copy of the book. So, you know, here's the title of the book: 24 chapters, 6 sections, 250 pages-ish. Really well rated on Amazon, 4.8 stars out of 5 with 402 ratings as of yesterday. And it's a top 50 or better bestseller in a couple different categories. It's a well-regarded book. That's why I got it. I've been reading David Fields' stuff for a long time, and I thought, geez, I need to get better. He got a book on it. Why don't I study that? As he puts it in his text online, most of us with solo consultants or small boutique firms, where he says 6 months from bankruptcy due to the sputtering unreliability of our new business engines. And I thought, yeah, I'd love to have 6 months, honestly. Let me ask the next question. on a scale of 1 to 5, how reliable and effective is your new business generation process? Again, this is anonymous. You can be as honest as you feel comfortable being. You got 5, 7 answers. Okay, fairly advanced group. Someone rated themselves a 5. Thank you, Jerry Fletcher. We know who our thought leaders are. I'm guessing. A couple more 1s, some more 4s. All right, so people are fairly comfortable with reliability and effectiveness of new business generation. We'll see. Hopefully you guys will glean some value from what I have to share with you. And I'll leave that question open for another minute or two. He goes on to say that the problem is twofold: lack of a consistent proven plan. That was definitely me. And the second thing he suggests is a fundamental misunderstanding about what clients want in a consultant. And I read that, I thought, that's not me. And then I read the book and I realized that was totally me. Because Jerry's laughing. Jerry knows me. And so, here's the 6 steps. This is from the books, from page 15 of the introduction. And it is a lovely, detailed examination of the whole, not the customer journey, but the buyer's journey. Like, you get through to the sale and then he ends. And he starts off with what he calls right side up thinking, which is stop thinking like a consultant and think more like your client wants you to think. Maximizing your impact so you've got something to say. Then building visibility, making sure that your impact is visible. If you haven't got impact, being visible does not help. By the way, look, I deliver no results. Look at me, look at me. That's the last thing you want to do. Once you've got some visibility, then actually connecting with people on a one-on-one basis, because all the visibility in the world is not helpful in consulting sales, which is about building a high trust relationship where people are willing to expose themselves to the risk of working with you. And the kind of projects we do are risky. Becoming the obvious choice once they're willing to buy, and then actually how to negotiate, how to propose, how to close the business. He covers all that in 250 pages. I think he does a very good job. Now, the study group was 4 of us. Diane, who's here, a woman named Sylvia, who has a quote she gave me for her results in this group, and also Melanie and myself. We did about 2 chapters a week. We took this pretty seriously. It was a couple of hours a week to really do this, because I need sales, right? If I'm not working on this, why am I doing this? We talked about what, in this chapter, what did he say? What have we been doing up until now? What are we going to do differently moving forward? And sometimes we got into more detail, but that was really the pattern is, okay, he's saying to do this. How does that compare with what we've been doing? And what are we going to do differently? And I think all of us shifted our practice at least a little bit. The other nice thing was there's some accountability to actually do the things. I started the group because I knew I wasn't going to really apply anything if I didn't slow down and talk it through and go look at my documents, look at my marketing literature, look at my web pages. And as a really nice bonus, I told David Fields on LinkedIn, hey, by the way, we're studying your book. It's really awesome. And he said he'd like to drop in. And so we said, sure. And he, on this 22nd of November, he showed up. That's his standard photo. That's not what he looked like when he popped into Zoom for us. And by the way, this talk is not authorized by David Fields just because I'm showing his photo, okay? And the study group really was, for me, quite the game changer. I went from a much lower to a much higher level of confidence that I knew what the heck I was doing, how to network, how to talk, how to sell. Just this past, literally the last 7 days, I sold $14,700 worth of additional business. I don't think I would have sold if I hadn't been studying the book. My monthly recurring revenue is up $1,300. Pipeline's actually growing finally. And these are, if you knew me better, thank you, Jerry. You know this is actually a big deal. And then Sylvia kind of blew us all away. She was really considering quitting consulting. And after working slowly through the book in a group setting, she sort of surprised us a couple of weeks ago. Oh yeah, I just closed a 6-figure deal. And we're like, what? And that kind of blew up the whole meeting. We didn't talk about any chapters that day. We just talked about what happened with her, and you know what a difference that made for her. And she goes on to say that the group setting is important, which it is. I mean, if we're not doing a masterminds as consultants, we probably should be finding groups like IMC provides to help us help each other, and that was a big part of the value she got. And now I'm going to finish the rest of this talk with some specific things I learned. Number one, the phrase right side up thinking. Now, I'm not going to recap a chapter's worth of stuff, but I'll tell you what I pulled out of this was the clients really don't care about me or you, frankly. They care about them. And if I start talking about, here's my bio, and here's where I went to school, and here's my patented approach and my 13-step process, no one cares. Okay. In fact, if I'm fixing headaches, I shouldn't even say aspirin. I should say headache. And when you look at David Fields' website, which I've done repeatedly, as I'm reading his book, I'm like, does he practice this? Oh, he totally practices this. If you look at his blog, every single headline is about your consulting firm. It's not about his process. It's about the problem he's how to get more clients for your consulting firm, how to increase the profits for your consulting firm. It's symptom, person, symptom, person, symptom, person. That's right side up thinking. Talk about what they're thinking about, use their language, go to their venues, use the approaches that work with them, not the approaches you're comfortable with or talk about yourself. The other thing is that we're not tubes of toothpaste, as it turns out. Consulting is in fact the only way that a tube of toothpaste would be like consulting is if you could go to a store, buy a brand you don't recognize, and there was a better than 50% chance that all of your teeth would fall out from using the wrong toothpaste. Then consulting is like toothpaste. Because the kinds of projects we do, if they're done badly, can really screw somebody over. That's the reality that the clients are facing, is if they take the plunge of hiring any of us, they're opening themselves up to potentially catastrophic disaster if it goes badly, which is why they're so reluctant to hire us. And that's why differentiation is the last thing you should be doing. You should be doing reassuring. And he goes on a great length about that. So this was eye-opening for me. Second thing that blew me away was, okay, fish where the fish are. Who can you reach now? What are they buying now? Stop thinking about who you wish you could talk to and what you wish you could sell them. Have a little humility. Talk to who you already know and have honest adult conversations where you listen and find out, like, so what do you guys, over the past year, what have you been buying from experts? What problems do you face that are so serious you're going outside and hiring people, like folks like me?
Low-lying fruit.
Yeah. How to build a network. I've been doing this wrong for 20 years. The first thing he said that jumped out at me was stop adding value. It's like, but I've been always told you got to add value. What do you mean not add it? And what he made me realize is my actual relationship with people I actually like and care about, I don't only reach out to them when I have something valuable for them. That feels commercial. I reach out when I want to know how they're doing. And I have a human connection with them. And of course, if I find something interesting, I'll pass it on. But that's not the only time I talk to them. And his point is that, I'm not sure I have called that, yeah. He differentiates that, and there's another bullet point for this. There's a big difference between the kind of conversation you have with people you care about and like, your actual network, and commercial conversations about selling. And they are so different. They have different rules, and it's a different way of being. And if you've ever had an acquaintance who keeps trying to reach out to you because they're in Amway or some multi-level marketing thing, and every conversation with them, you're half afraid is going to turn into a sales pitch. It's like, what that's like, and it's no fun, and they're not really your friend. My wife, I won't mention the name, but my wife has an acquaintance, I can't call them a friend, who every conversation, it's going to come up, and she doesn't want to talk to her. So stop being like that. And there's a way to navigate that, which I'll cover in a second. And the other thing to build the network is talk to the people you already know as if you care about them, because you should. And then always ask for introductions. Like, hey, who's somebody else who's really cool? I love talk. Gosh, the time flew by, Fred. It's amazing. We got to talk more often. Hey, who's somebody who would value this kind of conversation? Who do you know who I would like talking to and they like talking to me? And that's all yet. It's not who's going to buy from you. You're not asking them to qualify prospects. That's commercial talk. We don't do that. This is like, who's cool? And you ask for those introductions literally in every conversation. Hey, who's somebody else who I could meet? And they'll tell you names and they'll introduce you. And then you just have, hey, hey, Barney, Fred was just telling me how cool you were. And I'd love to get to know you. When's a good time to chat? Once you've got the network ticking over, the other thing that blew me away next was you maintain the relationships with a certain bias, which is to say you make more outbound calls earlier, like once a quarter, to your friends and acquaintances who have purchasing authority or who introduce you to people with purchasing authority. And the people who you like the guy who detailed my car, really nice guy. I like that kid a lot. And I'm going to send him a Christmas card. And that's how I maintain that relationship. So I'm biasing my outreach and my warmth activities to the buyers. That's not insincere, that's just smart. And you build trust and peer pushback. Apparently, executives talk to a lot of people who want to tell executives what the executive wants to hear. And I've occasionally found myself doing that, and I'm stopping now.
Good.
And I should never have started feeling that way. It's like, if I feel that insecure in the relationship, I should either blow the relationship up or put it back on proper footing. Because if my actually speaking my actual mind and giving some pushback is going to harm the relationship, that was a bad relationship to start with. So I'm going to have a little more courage on that. And when you respectfully, honestly push back, you so differentiate yourself from most of the people talking to a CEO or anybody else with budget authority, because everybody else wants something from them. And what you want here is to be a good faith conversation partner. And again, oh yeah, you ask for intros. And then you wait for them to bring up an issue where you could actually help. And he talks about something called the turn, which I've almost memorized. It goes something like this. Hey, Fred, I noticed that we're talking about something that actually I do that professionally. So I'm wondering, would you be open to a separate conversation where we talk about your business and what I might be able to do for you? Would that be at all interesting? And would you be open to that? And you literally make it a separate commercial conversation, separate
Yes.
from your relationship conversation. Jerry's like, duh. See, Jerry, if I'd listened to you over the last 15, 20 years, I wouldn't need Fields' book, but there we have it. And he literally calls this the turn, and it's a specific question you ask to say, hey, we're having a human conversation, but would you be willing to have a commercial conversation since you brought up this thing? And they'll probably say yes, and they may not. And if they do, you literally schedule a separate meeting and you have a separate class of conversation with them. Like, this alone has already got me money. This alone has already got me more courageous in my networking, but I'll continue. Once you're having that commercial conversation with somebody, and if they call you up asking for help, then you just go straight into it. Like, you're already in a commercial conversation. You don't have to ask because they already brought it up. He calls this the context conversation. And I'm trying to memorize this. I literally pull this up on screen as I'm talking to people still to make sure I touch all the bases. And you want to say, okay, let me understand your situation. And you recap it. So they're nodding a yep, that's everything. And tell me about your desired outcomes. And they'll want to talk deliverables, and you got to stop it. Well, I need a report. Well, okay, dude, let's say I get your report, so what? What's the valuable outcome that this report you hope will get you? And like what? Why would you care? Like, what's the valuable result from this deliverable? Never let them tell you deliverables. Interrupt them, talk over them, say, yeah, no, I don't believe you. Like, why would that be useful? what would be the outcome that would be helpful for, oh, okay. Leading indicators of success. So, you know, if you're heading in that direction and a year from now, you've got triple the whatever, how do you know 1 month, 2 months in that you're heading the right way?
Right.
Because lagging indicators aren't going to help us steer. What are some risks? And one of your risks should be that bringing an outside consultant in could make things worse. And you bring that up. Because if you bring it, because they're already thinking it. And if you bring it up before they do, number one, they felt relieved that you're the one who brought it up because they were a little embarrassed to say it. And number two, wow, you're on my side, which, by the way, you should be. Value and how he talks about value could be in a whole separate talk for another hour. But he actually suggests you lay out, okay, so if this project is successful, how are you better off monetarily? Over 3 years, you know, it's $6 million. Okay, and what portion of that 6 million comes from the project? It's some proportion. Okay, and then your people are doing some of the work. What proportion of that comes from me? And again, you're discounting. Okay, so what we're really saying is the risk-adjusted value of me in a project is, you know, 0.5 times 0.5 times whatever times that 6 million, which no, that's not my fee, but that's the R and the ROI decision you have to make. Like, what's the real reward? And then the I is how much you're going to give me. And you literally talk dollars. And then parameters. How soon, how many people, how much downtime, at what level of quality, blah, blah, blah. And having that explicit a conversation is huge. And then he has a perfect proposal template, which I loved, which includes a lot of did I mention reassurance? Did I mention your teeth won't fall out? Yeah. Alan Weiss, already got this from Alan Weiss and I completely forgot it, but Field studied from Alan Weiss. And so here it is again, in your proposals include options, good, better, best. You know, here's the minimum that'll do what you need. Here's a slightly better version of that with more stuff. And then here's like the gold-plated version with spinny rims and the upgraded stereo or whatever. And let them choose different kinds of yes, not just a yes or no. And they may surprise you. He goes on at great length about pricing decisions. What jumped out at me was that my prior preferred pricing is absolutely the worst, which is time and materials with a cap. Absolutely the worst. And as he's just explaining why that was the worst, I'm like, yeah, that really is dumb, wasn't it? And I'd already Susan is nodding vigorously. I'm like, yeah, I started migrating away from that when I first hit Alan Weiss and value pricing. But now I feel like I've been inoculated and I will never ever be tempted again into that method. And a really strong defense of higher fees, which I appreciated. So that's my recap in 28 minutes or thereabouts. I want to tell you what you could do next. You could buy David's book. Now that has an affiliate link. I might get a nickel if you click that link as opposed to a different one. You might visit his website. I'd suggest subscribing to his email list and reading his blog. He's very good. I don't know if you want to buy some help. He sells to folks like us, so I've never bought from him, but you might. And if you're interested, you could ask me about my next study group because I'm doing this again. This was so valuable. I'm going to like get to the end of the book with the current group, rest for a few weeks, and I'm going to open it back up again and do it all over again with either the same folks or new folks, because that feels like a very, very, very good use of my time. Let me now ask you my next question, which is scale of 1 to 5. How helpful was this? And you know, my next question is going to be, what in particular did you take away from this? So we've got 26 people, 10 answers. If you came in late, by the way, that slido.com is the place. You just stick in that 6-digit number and you'll see the question there. 10 answers. Let me get like up to 12. If I get 13 response, boom, 13, that's half the room. That feels good. And let me ask the more substantive question next, which is, what's the most valuable thing you learned today? Even if it's only a hint at something you can go off and churn away at more strongly. David's material is good. Need to purchase the book. Reinforcing best practices already known. Yeah, I mean, we're not dummies here. A lot of you guys teach this stuff. The sales process and its structure. Yeah, don't always have to add value. Right side up thinking. Have an open mind to what works rather than what I think works. Separate conversation, the turn. Yeah. Planning repeatable process, schedule effort, read more books. Importance of focusing on the prospect's concerns. Yeah. Yeah, be curious, questioning. Building value that won't question your credibility to your client. I have to purchase the book and apply the principles to both my team and organization by extension. Nice. Let me ask one further question. I think like about half of us are putting in responses. And that would be this. What topics do you want to see covered in future programs? Now that I know that's a bit of a mood shift, and maybe I can come back to this question. And I'll talk more about David Fields in a second, but either I talked John into or John talked me into, I'm not sure which, I'm going to be helping with programming for IMC NOW. And so what else would you like to have us talk about here in these meetings? Value-based pricing, you got it. Technology adaptation, cool. Strategies for scaling, very nice. Sales without being salesy, love it. Private equity, I want to know more about that question because that's a big topic. Value-based pricing, venture capital. I think you can put in more than one answer, by the way. So if you have more than one topic you want to name, you're welcome to put in several. So let me leave this open and take questions on what you guys just heard. I know I went really fast through my lessons. But if you'd like to go deeper on any of it, say the word. Charles.
I just want to reinforce everything you said about reassurance. Very often we underestimate how important that is. I could tell a lot of stories about how just providing reassurance led to a contract and follow-on contracts, but it is so important to reassure the client, and they do want to have reassurance more than they care what university you got your graduate degree from.
Isn't that weird? And yet there it is.
That's obvious once you see it.
Yeah, it's like all forms of hindsight. Yeah, absolutely.
Let
Susan's
me
nodding vigorously. Susan, did you want to pop in and add anything? Jerry, go ahead, Jerry.
let me add to that. The reassurance doesn't stop when the engagement stops.
Oh no.
You have to continue to do it afterwards and make sure you're checking in with them and knowing where things are going and how they're going, and reassuring them that it is going to work if they stick to it.
Right.
Incredibly important. So many people just quit at the end of the engagement. That's not when the engagement ends. The engagement ends when the client says, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Gotcha. That's sadly quite quickly for me. Bill, I'm getting better though. Bill's got his hand up.
Right on. Cool. Yeah. Actually, a multiple question
Cool
thing here, if you don't mind. One is, you had those steps laid out as far as I think one was impact, and then the next was visibility, and then the next was, you know, making the conversations. But if you're early in your business and you don't have a deep track record established yet, what do you suggest as far as getting traction?
Interesting
And-
you asked that. He actually covers that in impact. He says, if you don't yet have the track record you need, the two things as I recall he talks about is, one is do pro bono stuff. Find someone who couldn't afford anybody but still needs the help. And when you deliver results from them, you've delivered results.
Right.
And the other one is subcontract. Find a consultant doing what you want to do, and be a worker bee. Be an extra pair of hands. Wow,
Cool.
technology adaptation just took the lead on the word cloud.
Tom, one thing that I used to do with clients in situations where there was a lot of unknowns, I would offer them a period of time where I would be willing to put my time in. And we would set goals and objectives. And if I met the objectives, then my pay was a certain amount. And if I didn't, then it wouldn't cost them a thing.
Gotcha. It's
Of course,
called
I knew
success
what my
fees. He
level
covers that in
was.
the pricing section.
Yeah. But
Yeah, that's a
that's
great way to put skin on the game, by the way. And that does,
Yeah.
I did that recently. I had it was a 150 grand project. 75 was their upfront fee to show me they were serious. And the second invoice was going to be any number between 0 and 75,000, depending on how happy they were.
Mhm.
That was my upfront offer to them. And they're like, wow, you've got confidence. I'm like, yeah, I got confidence.
Yeah.
This stuff works.
Yes.
Yes, Allison.
I'm just curious as to, in your work, have you ever had a situation where a potential client questions your capacity or bandwidth to take on the work?
I haven't yet, although that's a really interesting question. And obviously you'd want to have a good answer for that. So I would say, I'm so glad you asked me that question, because that really is important, because the last thing and by the way, this is one of his pieces of guidance. Anytime you hear an objection, argue in favor of their objection. Tell them how smart it is to be worried about that, how right they are to, like, that's a really good point. Because the last thing you want is to hire somebody into this crucial role in this crucial project, and then they can't like handle it, and they're not as present as you need them. Like, wouldn't that be hideous? Ooh. Fortunately, I can commit to you that I'm either am available or will be available full time on the time frame we're talking about, provided we sign within the next week or whatever is true. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I love that question. Yes, sir, Jerry.
I tried to find out a little bit more about what their concern was.
Right.
They may have said, well, I'm concerned you don't have enough bandwidth. Well, they may be saying you don't have enough time, or they may be saying you don't have enough experience in my industry, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But find out what that concern is before you begin to counter the objection.
Answer, yeah. Yeah. Like bandwidth, like what? What kind of bandwidth were you thinking?
Exactly.
I think in this instance, it's always about, at least in the sector that I'm in, my clients or potential clients know where I am, and they know like who else I'm working with. And so the question is always like, wow, well, we know you got a ton of work going over there. Are you going to have more time for us? Even if they know that I have other subcontractors, at the end of the day, they're not really wanting to deal with subs. So they want to deal with me. So they start kind of fishing to see. And I don't know that I've come up with a really smart response.
Actually, you're reminding me, Allison, of a point that a mentor of mine said once. He was getting beat up on something somewhat similar. It was fees. And it's like, wow, that your hourly rate seems really high. And he said, look, if I could solve this problem like right now with a pill, and you could have it fixed by this afternoon, and I charged you this amount, which was the contract amount, as a flat fee, would you pay it? He said, well, yeah. He says, okay, so we're not talking hourly rates, really, are we? He's like, oh. And they let go, because that was his shift of value. And you know, what I might ask your person could be something like, you know, well, first off, what kind of bandwidth, and like you're worried about getting more of my time. If you get your result, does it, if I can get you your result in 60 seconds, or, you know, why would you need any more of my time than the amount of time needed to get you where you want to go? And I'm committed to your results, and I'll give you as much time as you need to get your results. Susan. Sandra, I'm so sorry. Sandra, I've been calling you Susan.
Everybody does if they look
I
at
have
my
your
last
book. I don't know
name.
why I'm calling you by the wrong name.
The two, and they're related, that I've found are the most important are, first, of course, listen really hard. And second is ask a lot of questions. Because I learned early in, I learned watching other consultants, they don't trust you until they know that you understand them. And so the best way for you to convince them that you understand them is asking them as many related questions as you can think. And then not only do they give you answers that enable you to go forward, but then they realize that you don't give answers without really understanding the situation first.
That's true. That is
Beautifully
true.
put. Thank you, Sandra.
Well, one of the benefits of the IMC is the code of ethics that we have. And it gives us the confidence to be able to work with colleagues. And that point number 4 in the code of ethics is that you will not accept a project that you don't have the skills or the capacity to handle. So what that does is it encourages us to work with our colleagues and to take on larger projects, but to do it with a team of people. And sometimes there's challenges. A lot of times there's challenges with that, because you put together a team and you go into the project and then you find out the project is larger or more complex in different areas. Well, then you've got to be able to adapt and bring in other people. And that's why I have a number of different people that I work with to help with different projects. So it's a good reason to be active in the IMC.
Other questions? Oh, Bill has his hand back up. And Sandra, do you have more questions?
No.
Okay, great. Bill.
Yeah, this is an intriguing maneuver, the turn, setting up that separate conversation for the transactional element. So in doing so, when you're on the formal conversation where you're going to talk about services, do you still warm that up a little bit with like kind of casual talk, or is it all business at that point? Like, what's your philosophy on that?
I'm going to see what other people have to say, but for me, it's
you gotta,
I'm
you gotta
always
make it
me.
friendly, man.
I'm
You gotta
always
make
me.
it friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'll give them as much small talk as they seem to want, and when they start to lose interest in the small talk, and so are we ready to talk business?
Yeah, you don't want to walk in there like a book that they don't want to read. You know, I mean, it's really.
That's why I think the most important thing is to ask questions so that you understand. And so you've shown them that you understand. Then you can ask questions.
So really what we're getting at is like, they're going to lead the dance in that call still, even though we have an idea of what we want to cover, we have to make sure they're ready.
Yeah, well, let's say you're leading, but you're pacing yourself to how they want to follow.
I see. Okay.
Right. And so, you know, if you're my prospect and okay, so here's our separate conversation to talk about, you know, the problem you mentioned last time we talked. But before we get into that, Bill, how you doing, man?
Exactly.
You know,
yeah,
it's like anything new, anything up. And you might just say, well, what's mostly on my mind is this problem. It's like, boom, okay, we're in it.
Right.
And then I'm going to guide you through the 6 steps of the context conversation. And I might give you that as an agenda and say, look, here's what I want to talk about. And here's how I talk about it. Here's how I guide these conversations. Part of what I love about Fields is he has sold a lot of consulting as a general contractor, and he subs a lot of it out. So he sells to a lot of executives. And he's had these conversations a whole bunch of times. And then he turns around and hires consultants as the executive. And so he gets to be on both sides of the deal. And he's really learned that material very, very thoroughly. And he wrote a prior book called The Executive's Guide to Consultants. And he has the exact same 6 steps in there because he thinks it's a win-win. It's a very straightforward way of getting very clear mutual expectations. Did I mention I really like and admire David Fields?
In a conversation that Chuck Roxon and I were having yesterday, Chuck was bringing up how idiosyncratic the market, the Seattle Puget Sound market is, that around, business owners go to their attorneys when they have questions. So Chuck, what was your example and about the value of many business owners who go to their attorney to ask a question that's really a consulting question?
Well, yeah, they're willing to pay $650 an hour for a question that we will answer for $200 an hour. But it's really weird here. People will call their attorney or their accountant, but they won't necessarily think of calling a general management consultant. We have an educational job to do with our potential markets. And Thomas has talked around the topic of the soft close. And the soft close and sale, I think, is very important in helping to, again, reassure the prospect that we can help them and that as many people as they may need for this project, we can find the time frame, we can find. The fee is definitely good value. Everything is there, but it means we have a slightly extra hurdle to jump in terms of what people think of when they want to hire a consultant.
Well, can I tell you why they're talking to their lawyer about it? It's because they're talking to their lawyer already anyway, because the lawyer stays in touch.
That's part of it, but the other part of it is that because the lawyer stays in touch, they become the most trusted advisor.
Sounding board.
They're the ones. So it could be in many cases in the past, it was the accountant.
Yeah, true.
And so, I mean, one of the ways to find yourself into new clients is to talk to the attorneys, talk to the accountants, talk to the bankers that they work with. As a matter of fact, I've had a couple of clients that have had extraordinary success because they've worked that angle all the way, with one addition, the mergers and acquisitions people.
There are a number of investors in the Puget Sound area that send people they want to invest in to me. I would never know them or never find them. And they say, I'm going to send you to Yoda. And I've developed a relationship with investors so that they understand where, when they can't talk to the guy or the gal, that's the point where they send them to me. And I'll just sit and listen, like Thomas said, to the person waiting to get the investment until it's clear what they don't know about. And then I can help them. And then I can call the investor back and say, okay, he's investment ready now. It took 4 years to build that referral network of constant networking, of talking with people without the expectation of getting anything.
The key is to think of things, if you're doing networking, is to be relational, not transactional.
Correct.
It's that simple.
Jeff Mays is pretty masterful at that. How many different networking groups are you doing, Mr. Mays?
Only about 7 right now. So
how are they working?
Good. That's 100% of my business comes from. Never had to advertise, which is nice.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, there's a number of people who haven't been on this call before. Maybe we could go around the room and people could ask a question or tell us a little bit about themselves. Thomas, this has been an excellent program. Thank you very much. I think we should all give Thomas a round of applause. Well done.
Very good. By the way, if you want to weigh in on this question any further, what do you want covered in future programs? I'd love to get any more input at all. We're going to take this all very seriously, and I'll stop sharing now.
We are very interested in the topics that people are interested in, what's moving, because we're in a shape-shifting universe, and it's continuing to adapt. And just as soon as we think that things are beginning to taper off in one direction, all of a sudden things pop up in another direction, whether it's inflation or Ukraine or whatever. It's like, oh my God. And then we'll get a new variant or something. So thank you all for attending. It's a little bit after 5. We typically close the official part of our meeting at 5, and then we go on and have discussion for as long as we've got topics to talk about. And sometimes that can go a little long. Feel free though. Diane, you're on the top of my screen. I know it all is different for everybody else. Why don't you introduce yourself and what's going on for you?
Okay, thanks, John. So I'm Diane Gibson, DMG Consultancy, and I have had my consultancy for about 15 years, and it has evolved to organizational design and architecture with people. It's not building design, it's not architectural digest or anything like that, but it's architectural design within an organization. And it's the people piece. It all starts with the foundation of how are you assessing the people side of the equation to see, it's not just do we have the right people in the right seats, it's do we have the right personality, do we have the right temperament for a person that's responsible for customer service, or are they quite honestly pissing people off and your customer service is worse because that person is doing their job in a terrible way. But it's all about effectiveness and efficiency. It's building teams and helping organizations accelerate performance.
Thank you, Diane. Mm-hmm. Andy, I want to be sure that you tell us a little bit more about your work and your practice, and is it strictly the cyber world, or do you get involved in systems? I would suspect you do.
Absolutely. The cyber and the physical, they are both one and the same. And how that works, I can't tell you exactly, but what me and my team do is we find the right tools that you need for your business, whether it's you're trying to work out the logistics for a warehouse and getting that interconnected as a network as a whole, or you're working distributed along different countries, whoever you might be working with to get the job done, whether they need laptops, accounts to their Microsoft licenses and all that stuff. But hey, I was just typing out a message here before I got called on, and I was trying to type out how much value Thomas has brought to me. I just need to say a few words about Thomas and everything that he's done for me. We started our business in 2019.
We're recording this, right?
Yes, it is being recorded.
Sorry.
So I apologize for whatever happens next in advance. So I was referred to Thomas by a dear friend of mine, and I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. But what I was finding myself as each time I returned to Thomas was not just how to be a salesman, but also how to be a friend to friends, because I didn't realize how difficult it was to be a businessman that's trying to build a business, but then also have friends for the sake of just having friends. And I really wanted to avoid talking to friends that I actually cared about, but I still wanted them to know that, hey, I'm trying to build a business. I'm trying to do something for myself to make income. That's not me working for someone else, and how that can be a very lonely road while trying to maintain, actual meaningful friendships. So understanding that it's okay to have friends, and it's also okay to bring up business in the right context, under the right, in the right environments, and just all that stuff. Can't sing higher praises for Thomas. I keep paying for his services, and I keep showing up whenever my business lets me, and Thomas will attest to that. So thanks for that. So about my business, we're a managed services provider, and that's a lot of words together that just mean the IT environment is always changing, and it's very unique for every company. What we do here is we are your outsourced CTO, so Chief Technology Officer. You come to us and you tell us, this is our business, this is how we want to succeed, what technology are we missing? And on the cybersecurity front, as that's just one part of the puzzle, because the cybersecurity target, granted, moves a lot quicker and is a lot more erratic than the systems that you actually need to do your day-to-day work. So your day-to-day work, the systems are pretty set in stone. We know which ones work well together, and we'll refer that to you, or we'll recommend those to you. You end up making the final decision on what you're going to implement. But on the cybersecurity side, it's all layers and they're all over the place. And it really just depends on what works best for you and your team, and what risk factors we think are highest, depending on what technology you're actually using, and whether you're even using any physical technology like servers or just web services. And I'll just leave it at that. Thanks so much, John. And
Thank
everybody.
you. Now, next month, Dottie Scott is going to be doing the innovation talk. And one of the angles that we've been talking about is going to be a movement from today, is how do we do marketing safely? Can we do marketing safely? In us doing marketing, we expose ourselves. We tell people about ourselves. We reveal a lot of information. We're available to people. And those are some of the most dangerous ways to get a flood of email, and trying to identify the people who are clients or possible clients from the people that are in fact trying to either sell us honestly or sell us or just penetrate our system. So Dottie, you want to say a word or two about yourself and your practice?
Sure. My name is Dottie Scott. I own premium websites and AskDottie.com. On the premium website side, I create mostly WordPress websites for small businesses, and I help them figure out what website technologies they need to add into their website. On the Ask Dottie side, that's an educational platform for busy business owners that want to learn how to promote themselves online. It's designed, it's video-based and designed for someone to come in, watch a video, and then go and do that one thing, get it mastered, come back and learn a new thing. So it's not super technical. It's for people just like all of us. And as far as next month, my plan is to talk about where all my clients came from last year, what marketing worked, at least for me, and what didn't, and how I was able to determine that so that you guys can take that and figure out for yourselves what's working and what's not, because it's silly to continue to do something that's not working just because maybe you're comfortable or familiar with it. And it's phenomenal to continue to do things that are working and expand on those and figure out ways that you can actually make them work better. So that's what we'll be chatting about next month.
Thank you, Dottie. Thank you. Nigel Robinson. Hello, Nigel. Thank you for attending. Talk to us. We can't hear you.
My name is Nigel Robinson. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, from the Caribbean. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. Welcome. Welcome to the IMC.
Thank you once again. I spoke to Dr. Gaffney a short while when we had the breakout sessions, and she also shared with me the ambassadors program. My background, like Andy, is cybersecurity. specializing in more the incident management and response on the side of red teaming, forensics, and I oversee training for my team with respect to training and development on all things cybersecurity, forensics, operational, you name it. Prior to my career with the government, I was a network engineer with a local internet service provider. So I just transitioned, and more of what I do is internally to the team, and the organization is provide internal like an advisory. So right now I'm working on developing the incident response plan, the blue team, in which impacts advanced persistent threats, and we're looking at it from holistically how we can safeguard our information assets, because we know the threats are growing every single day. As a matter of fact, Andy, I read a report coming from the BBC that they have expressed that 74% of the ransomware attacks, it's paid to the Russians on them. And I shared it with some of my team yesterday, and only to see your slide came up with ransomware, and I smiled. So I guess we're on the same page. We are trying to build more security awareness for our stakeholders, because every single day they're not making it easy for any one of us as cybersecurity professionals. The downside to it, and Andy could also express, is that there's a global shortage of cybersecurity professionals. I think approximately 3.5 million as of 2021, and that is going to grow much bigger. Andy, could you also attest to this? But this is what's happening right now. So we need to build a culture of awareness in terms of how we mitigate risk and place more emphasis on personal identifiable information, because one, the average citizen, private or otherwise, their personal identities are being compromised, and these are the things we need to mitigate and we can't take for granted, and that's my contribution. Thank you all.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We hope that you'll join us again next month. It's the third Tuesday. Maurice, I haven't heard you say hello. What are your questions, or how are things going for you?
Good. And John, I wanted to thank you for all of the work that you do for the organization. You're just a real, such a great contributor, and I really appreciate everything you've done for me. So for me personally, I'm super busy with my consulting practice that focuses on technology, specifically within a niche market, which is serving the temporary staffing industry, which is a pretty big industry. There's 25,000 temporary staffing firms just in the US alone. And I've been busy, doing a lot of presentations, and I've got a pretty good pipeline ahead. Really enjoyed this presentation today. I got some really great takeaways. I have had this book for a while. It's sitting right next to my bed. I haven't picked it up to read it in detail, but now I am going to read it. Nice. Now that it's been sort of validated as being valuable. So for me, I've been thinking a lot about how to evolve my business from just pure project-based business, one project at a time, which is largely what it is. Just, small projects and then bigger projects, and delivering tremendous value to my clients, and evolving it into kind of an advisory business with more of a subscription-based model and providing recurring services. So I've spent quite a bit of time studying how to do that, and I've got a plan that I'm executing against to get there. I've been thinking about this for a long time. So that's my goal, is to build a business that has both recurring revenue streams along with project deliverables, and strike a good balance between the two.
Nice. Wonderful. Well, good luck with that.
Thank
Brenda, thank you so much for joining us today. This is your first visit, right?
You invited me.
Yes.
And you
and
foolishly came.
You're a friend of Bill's.
Yes, Bill and I see each other in another group as well.
Huh? Yeah. And you're a QuickBooks Pro advisor.
So I'm a QuickBooks Pro advisor. I've been using QuickBooks since 1995.
Wow.
And I specialize in dissecting puzzles, but I also do training and get people's books set up properly. And then we do bookkeeping as well.
Well, thank you for attending. I hope that you found it interesting and that you'll come and visit us next month. And you and I need to talk about one of those projects.
And me too.
Sandra, thank you for your contributions today. I hope that you found the topic useful.
You're muted still, Sandra.
There.
Yes, there I am. Sorry. Yes, it was very interesting. Got a lot of, like I said, the how to approach people and how to ask questions. I feel really strongly about that, and also about helping to build consultants, since I've been doing it for a very, for many decades.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you.
And it was good seeing Nigel, my countryman, and my family. That was very fun for me, and I look forward to talking with you sometime.
Yes. I also have
Absolutely.
an old friend
Forward.
from Trinidad and Tobago. So yes, I was thinking when you introduced yourself, I was like, oh golly, I need to talk to you. Another new guest is Mark Combs. You may have come to one of our previous ones, but you haven't come to many. So thank you, Mark, for attending today and your observations around cybersecurity, given your years of experience with computers and building websites and your greaterlink.net venture there in East Tennessee.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Glad to meet everybody that I've seen, and I'll be back next month.
Wonderful. Patricia, what would you like to share?
Hi, John. Greetings from the DFW chapter. I live in Dallas, Texas, and it's always a pleasure to be able to join now with the wonderful programs. I have a closing compliment for Tom. Tom, I do not know how this was arranged, but my chapter was able to get David Fields to come and be a presenter for a session like this.
Nice.
But here's the compliment. Even though he was great and he actually did drawings throughout the presentation, he was very entertaining. However, what you did with your study group and what you shared with us step by step, the way we have to do things, as we know, it's not the icing, it's the whole cake. I think I got way more from your session than I got from the session by David Fields himself. So my big compliment to you.
Whoa.
Thank you very much. I'll be sure to tell David if I ever talk to him again. Probably the last time I'll ever talk to him. Thank you. That means a lot to me.
Thank you, Patricia. Now, Javier is from Florida, and he's a PhD student. Javier, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. So thank you for joining us today. And what questions or observations do you have?
No, well, from my observation point of view, like it was very good to see it from a different aspect, because a lot of times from my background in cybersecurity, so I'm always looking at things from a technical point of view instead of or an operational point of view from my military background. But this is like from a different vantage point. I'm like, oh, okay, I never thought of looking at it that way when discussing, consulting for cybersecurity. Because I'm always coming from the engineering side. And I've noticed that we're talking to other folks and seeing how everybody brings their point of view, that it can be too business-like, and you don't want to be doing that, is what I got off of this session, as well as you don't want to be too technical. So you got to find a happy medium. And there's a saying in the cyber world, the quieter you are, the more you'll hear. So it's like, yeah, let that person that you're consulting speak. So they're going to give you what you need, the information you need to kind of build the conversation. So have them open up to you, and then use that as leverage to turn around and say, okay, well, this is based on what you're telling me, here's what I can provide. So that was a great insight. Look at those steps. That's what I got out of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Ian, are you there? Can you unmute and say hello?
Hello, everyone. I'm Ian. I'm a cybersecurity consultant. Mostly I deal with a lot of compliance. So since the COVID, I've been trained in new compliance issues. It has been like almost on a daily basis, either government and corporate. And I'm so glad to meet like fellow IT people around here, especially Nigel and Matt, Andy. Yeah, really enjoyed the presentation. Yeah, like Nigel just mentioned, there's a shortage of cybersecurity people in our industry. So sometimes I have to be pulling to train you guys to do it. And it's been an uphill task. Hopefully we have a good 2022 and better secure America and our future. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for participating. We hope you'll join us next month.
Oh, by the way, I'm based in Austin, but right now I'm visiting family in Kansas City. Nice to meet everybody. Bill and I met. I was calling QuickBooks advisors searching for some help for a client. And I came upon Bill on a phone call, and Bill and I found that we had a lot of things in common. And now Bill introduced me to Brenda and to a fellow Josh, a CPA from Duluth. So Bill, what are your thoughts about today's session?
Thank you. There we go. Yeah, thanks for having me. I thought it was great. So the consulting world is a little bit new territory for me. So it's intriguing. And I know, people go to school, they study business to become consultants. So I'm a little bit intimidated, but I'm also like, wow, like this is a direction I need to go because I'm naturally a strategist. And knowing that about myself, I think I mentioned this to you, John, that I started with a bookkeeping business, and I kind of realized that I've been a bookkeeper for more than 15 years, and I kind of abhor the technical work of bookkeeping. And, it only, sometimes I like it, but it hits me really hard at the end of the year. And so I went through that, and so I made a full business pivot, and I'm moving to advisory services. This is really with a focus of monthly iterative forecasting. And that's the direction I was already heading with my bookkeeping services, but it's a little bit risky because the bookkeeping is like the foot in the door, that kind of like how they were talking about the lawyer earlier. If they're having the monthly conversation with me as the bookkeeper, it's a little bit easier to work up to a place. Whereas this is a bit of a little bit scary experiment for me to see if I'm going to be able to pull revenue I'm doing a lot of coaching as well. So I'm in an identity crisis. Am I a coach or am I a consultant? I think I'm both, but I think more than any of those, I'm kind of an educator. And so I think that's going to be the lead if I'm out there in the public teaching my niche about financial literacy and business acumen. That's, I think, what's going to establish the relationship where they may want to talk to me at some point about more of the advisory services, but we'll see. So in the meantime, I'm kind of selling clients to other bookkeepers or just linking them to the right people. I love hooking people up with somebody who's going to get them taken care of. So hopefully I can get in a position where that's creating sustainable monthly revenue for me.
Wonderful. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
For for people who are just joining the IMC, we have a quick start program, and then we have a certificate program. There's a course starting in I think it's a month or 6 weeks, March, April. Then we have an ambassador program, and we're just about to be starting more of a university outreach. I mentioned that in the beginning. Patricia, you're deeply involved in the ambassador program, right?
Yes, I recruited Jerry today.
Oh.
And maybe
Well,
maybe Tom will serve as an ambassador too. And I bet that Sandra would as well.
yes, yes.
So, and this is one of the ways that we are building the ambassador program by, just knowing other consultants who have years in with IMC, understand the value, and want to share that with those who are joining more recently. It's a for those who are coming on board now, it's a very deep network of people that you can pick up the phone and get an answer from in a very short amount of time. And a deep bench, when you have the situation, which I can't remember who asked about it earlier, like what do you do when they think that you don't have the bandwidth to do a project? Well, you have a deep bench of associates that you can rely on because you've gotten to know them through our interactions and through work alongside each other in committees and conferences and other projects that we do. So.
Well, for people that are interested in knowing more, they can go to IMCnow.org and learn more about us. You can go to IMCUSA.org and you can call any one of us, Sandra and Thomas and myself and Patricia and Jeff Mays. We have a big team, and we love to help other consultants. Now, Patrick Locke, what do you have to offer, Mr. Host?
Well, I've been listening. I actually really enjoy listening to Thomas. I think you do just such a great job. And the way that you explain things there, that brought quite a bit out as far as dealing with potential clients and clients, really. And following through with them, getting the business. I mean, that's a real important part of what we're doing, is getting the business. If we don't get the business, we might as well sit at home, I suppose. But yeah, so that was really good. I got a lot out of that. And then the cyber side of it, that is real interesting. I was looking at his numbers. There are 400,000 a day. That is just unbelievable how that could be.
Oh, it's an industrial process.
Degree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's heavily automated.
Yeah, so there's a lot there, but yeah, these have always been interesting for me and gained something from it. And as long as being here and listening, we're all going to get a little nugget of something to help us through our journey as we move forward. So I always get something out of it. Back to you, John.
Thank you. And thank you for being our Zoom master today.
Oh,
Mr. Mays, talk to us. What are your observations here?
Well, great presentations. Really enjoyed them both. I was reading something this morning. I see Andy just left, but reading something this morning that a woman was caught filing 16,000 fraudulent tax returns. Different twist, but each of those people that she filed a return for was a real number, and it messed up their lives getting that all straightened out. So this type of fraudulent stuff in the world today is just rampant. It's bad news, right? Brenda probably knows that from the bookkeeping side. But what Tom talked about today was excellent. I bought the book last month after we announced this as the topic. It's sitting on my Kindle, not opened yet. So it's definitely going to get opened. Definitely some great things. I'm excited about this. I mean, these kind of topics are great, and I really appreciate Tom talking about it, and also taking on some of the leadership for programs going forward. If we can all help him with some ideas, I think that's a great thing we can all do to keep us all involved and coming back more often. Thanks a lot.
Well, I'll throw the floor. Say that again, Tom.
I'll just thank you, Jeff, for the kind words. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll throw the floor open, and typically what we're going to do shortly is we're going to close the call so that we can process the recording and send it up to YouTube, and then send an email out to all the registrations so that they have access, because there were many more people who registered but were unable to attend today. So who has a topic they'd like to talk about? And we can spend a few more minutes, and then we can wander off to dinner, I suppose. Well, looks like we're done.
Sounds like everybody wants to run off to
actually,
dinner.
If we need to fill airtime, I got a question for Thomas. Hey there, Thomas. So I'm curious how David Fields' approach, how your networking has shifted by how your approach to networking has shifted, and what results you've pulled from that just in that short period of time.
I feel much more comfortable asking for introductions and having conversations when I know I have no intention of selling to them at all. I am just trying to get to know them as human beings. It's so liberating.
And you're finding business and quality leads through spreading such a wide net, not having necessarily.
It's not that wide a net.
Okay.
Because I'm not asking, hey, who's a random board person who would like to talk to me? It's who do you know who's interesting and is like making change and shaking things up. Now, what is that? What am I describing? People who need consultants. If you are interested, if you're making change and shaking things up, and you're interesting and you're pushing the envelope in some cool way, okay, you either are a potential client or you know my potential clients. All right, that is a sweet spot. That's the top 5% of the population out there, like affecting the world actively right now. Not that other people aren't lovely people, but I didn't ask for them.
Right.
And so I tend to get introduced to people who are pretty dynamic and pretty well connected, and they either figure out where they could use me, or they figure that they know someone who could use me, or we just talk about cool stuff. And that's totally worth my time.
So how did you dial in that target?
Well, you say that target.
Well, I mean, you're looking for, I guess, sounds like innovators.
No, I'm quoting from Fields' book.
Really?
He literally says, I'll go find the page, but he says,
okay, so it's not necessarily like a,
but you don't ask for introductions to random people. You're asking for very specific introductions. Creating relationships, find.
So you're asking for introductions from these innovators, these ambitious innovators who are ideal. They just happen to be ideal clientele for consultants.
Right. So you ask your existing, how to ask for introductions, right? You say, you don't say anything like, who else do you know who could use what you could benefit from my services?
Yeah, that's the classic
that's a
one,
sales,
isn't it?
It's like, God, I did that for years. It's so dumb. I mean, maybe it works for somebody, but it's never worked for me because no one knows that. And he describes that as pushy and graceless as a 12-year-old trying to get a first date, which is an image that will stick with me. And it's as painful for them to hear it as it is painful for you to say it. So here's the fresh way. It says, hey, Fred, you've been so incredibly helpful during this project. And you know that meeting people and building relationships is at the heart of what I do. And I'd love meeting interesting people. Who have you run into recently who's intriguing, creating change, shaking things up? And I promise you, someone he's met recently who's intriguing, creating change and making and shaking things up is probably on the cutting edge of change, which is in the same ballpark as we need consulting help. Okay, it's not that stay-at-home dads and stay-at-home moms and retirees and prepubescents aren't all lovely human beings. Very few of them have budget authority or engage in the kind of projects I'm interested in. And so I'm on page 111 is where that particular passage is. But yeah, and I haven't gotten that many introductions. I've got like 3 and 2 of them bought. So I'm not saying that that's going to be your mileage or even mine moving forward, but I just feel so much more comfortable now asking for intros, and we're doing the outreach and having the chat, and et cetera. It's just night and day for me. And part of that was just how incredibly uncomfortable I was before, I guess. But yeah, and you know, and if you're just interested in them, and you have, you know, and Bill, you strike me as having fairly high emotional intelligence. I didn't. So this would have been wasted on me a while ago. But since I, you know, grew my EQ recently, I'm much more able to engage in, you know, Sandra's staring at me like I'm not making sense.
I was wondering to what you would attribute that.
Well, I knew I needed it, and I sort of set out to grow my, maybe we'll do that another time, growing your EQ. We'll make that a presentation. But let's just say once I realized I needed it, I started looking for it. And, you know, once you start looking for something, you start finding it. And so, you know, my favorite book on the subject is the one I mentioned to you, Bill, earlier, this Carla McLaren's book, The Language of Emotions. And I literally read that book out loud to my wife, chapter by chapter. She already knew the book, but she likes being read aloud to it. And the only way I can slow down enough to really process anything is to read it out loud. Plus, we would pause and say, now, wait a second. Or, hey, I totally get that. Or, oh my God, is that what's been going on all this time? So it completely transformed my relationship with my own emotions, and therefore other people's emotions, by the way, duh. And so how I handle other people who are angry, totally different. How I handle other people who are sad or anxious, totally different. And that's like, I felt like I was being let out of jail. It's like someone finally gave me the instruction manual for humanity. Like, that's what I've been doing wrong all this time. So that was pretty like wild and amazing. And then the other thing I did was, and you can't do this under COVID, but hopefully we'll start this back again, is I got into doing improvisational theater, not improvisational comedy, which is distancing. Improvisational theater, which is more about listening for the emotional truth of the other people on stage and not thinking through what you're going to say, but trusting yourself and just seeing what happens. And you do it so rapidly, you iterate so quickly that you really build some muscle very, very, very fast. And I got to do that with my wife, actually, and it was a ton of fun. It's one of my like favorite life experiences. Actually, was about the 2 years where we did quite a bit of improv theater. We ended up like joining a troupe for a while, just an amateur group that met every week and did stuff and practiced. And we had a performance at the end for, you know, all of our friends who weren't quick enough to say no. But damn, was that fun. And I really do date my my growth to that, studying that book, realizing there was something I needed to learn, and then having a deliberate practice that involved listening to other people's emotions and responding authentically. Huge. I then took what I learned and turned it into a class called Empathy Exercises for Engineers, which I led at the what was it? Project Management Institute invited me in, because you'll never find a bigger group of engineers outside of maybe the IEEE. Very left brain, very stiff, very process oriented. And I'm like, empathy. And they're like, tell us more.
What's the equation for empathy?
Yeah, which there is, by the way, because I was able to give them the science, because I come at it from this very engineering perspective. And, you know, I showed them the path I took. And we gave them a bunch of exercises literally in the room. They loved it so much. Not only was it the highest rated program for the entire conference, but it was the highest rating they could find in their records ever. Which tells me that engineers are perfectly happy to learn empathy if you give it to them the right way. So that's one of my life highlights, I guess.
Yeah.
Have you read Matthew Kelly's new book called Life is Messy?
No, but I love it.
It is incredible. Just came out, and it's basically, you're never going to get everything done perfectly, and you might as well realize that right away. And that's the way it is.
Hear, hear.
The good news is I came wired that way.
I guess that's why I suggested it.
Love it.
It's fun.
Okay, I'm looking at it on Amazon now. Thank you, Sandra, very much.
Yeah.
Okay, we've had 45 minutes of after meeting discussion, and we've got so Patrick, please stop the recording.